Welcome to On the Record. I'm Chief Political Correspondent Andy Weber. Our guest today, Congressman Mark Harris, Congressman Chuck Edwards, as well as Charlotte City Council member at large Dimple Ajmera. The topics we're focusing on today: 1 year since Hurricane Helene ravaged western North Carolina and the ongoing recovery there, as well as a response from both D.C. and local lawmakers since the murder of Irina Zarutska on Charlotte's light rail. Earlier this week, D.C. lawmakers were in Charlotte to hold a hearing on how to deter and reduce violent crime. We sat down with Mark Harris, a member of that committee, right after they met. I wanted to first get your thoughts. It's been some time since, but your thoughts on seeing that video, the murder of Irina Zarutska, just your initial reaction to seeing that.
Well, it was absolutely horrifying to watch. And as it became evident, I mean, here's a young girl and her story that continued to come out, that she comes from Ukraine. She had fled a war-torn country, comes to the United States, gets a job, trying to work on the language. She's trying to get a driver's license, all those kind of things that you want to do over the period of time that she was here. And then to find herself in the position she was in. I mean, when I watched that video, I just thought, how in the world? So many things, so many levels that disturbed me. Obviously, that the fact that she never saw it coming, that she was just sitting there innocently. The fact that this man obviously looks at her, premeditates, pulls that knife out, pulls it up, and then just drives it into her. And then the fact that there were bystanders on the train and nobody really did anything. They just got up and walked off. There's a lot of levels that were extremely disturbing to me in that video.
When did the idea of bringing a committee to Charlotte start being discussed? Where did that come from?
Well, I think the Judiciary Committee is this story. Once the video was actually released, I think the story, which was weeks after it happened, as you know, it happened August 22nd, and weeks later, it caught the attention of folks in Washington. And I think it was after that video was released and began to just go far and wide. And I think the president saw it. I think he tweeted out about it. I think that, again, folks began to recognize that we've got a problem here. And the Judiciary Committee picked up on it. And then I received some information in my office that we talked with the Judiciary Committee staff. And they said, you know, this probably would warrant a field hearing. And that's when it all started just a couple of weeks ago.
You were in the room. It was about 2.5 hours, heard from several witnesses. What was your takeaway?
Well, you know, all these hearings is fascinating. There's so many, again, takeaways. One, just giving these victims of crime, their family members, an opportunity to share their stories and share really a common piece that was a real problem. And that is that there's a breakdown of where we are in fighting crime in this country in a big way. And it really, I've said this time and again, that when we look at what happened to Irina Zarutska, it really is a microcosm of what I consider to be an epidemic that is hurting our country right now, and that is crime. And 81%, I think in a poll just a few weeks ago, said that 81% of Americans said that crime is a major issue in our cities. And I think they recognize that. And I think that when we sit down in a meeting like this, you know, you had Democrats in the room, you had Republicans in the room, and they had very different approaches to it, obviously, as you saw yourself. And I think it's something that we've got to recognize, and let's say, hey, we've got to fix this problem. And one of the key obvious problems is we're not incarcerating criminals and keeping them behind bars. And the tragic stories of a father, as he described his daughter's Logan's really death and execution, was just heart-wrenching. And how a grandmother described her granddaughter Mary's death that was absolutely just atrocious. It was eye-opening that I don't think I'll ever forget it.
So much onus, at least here in North Carolina, is being placed right now on magistrate judges and how they're operating, as well as the judicial system. Does it fall on then voters who elect their appointers, or does it fall on the General Assembly who sets the rules and procedures of how these courts operate?
Well, I think, you know, when we're trying to solve a problem, I think it wouldn't be bad to hit it from both ends. I think it would be good to have some more requirements of what magistrates actually are receiving in terms of training, how they are carrying out their responsibility, how they're being held accountable. I mean, one of the first questions I asked when this story came out is how could somebody have spent 5 years in prison, and I think it was known that he dealt with schizophrenia, and have all of these facts in front of you, and if you looked at that file, how you could have allowed this person right back out on the street, that's a major question. And that's why, obviously, it was not done. It was not done. What we would have expected to happen didn't happen.
And in D.C., you filed 2 bills dealing with crime deterrence and crime fighting. Explain what those do and what those look to do, the bills you filed.
Well, really, the 2 bills that we're looking at that deal with issues that we've talked about even here today, one of them kind of is looking at the accountability aspect, and that's saying to our cities and communities across the country that if you're going to defund the police, if you're going to be involved in cashless bail, which are obviously 2 major problems that we're facing right now, then you're not going to be eligible for these federal grants. So it begins to put a limit on the federal grants and hold cities accountable that are receiving this MAC tax money. We're not going to ask the American taxpayer to be funding states and local communities that are ignoring the real source of the problem. The other bill is actually one that I consider for transparency, and that is that President Trump has put in place an executive order. This would codify that executive order that instructs the Department of Justice to be able to identify all of the places across this country that are operating with cashless bail. I mean, I think it really should make all of these cities and communities transparent. And I think all Americans want to know if their city has gone down this path or if their community has gone down this path. And so it really adds a layer of transparency, and that's what we'll be doing, is codifying that executive order.
Representative Ross, Representative Adams both brought up the issue of funding for different programs. I think it can be said that investment in certain programs can lead to a positive result. So on that, are there areas you'd say that can be invested in to maybe help with mental health care or issues like that?
I think you can look at those, and I think that we need to have that conversation. Nobody's opposed to how we need to do a better job of dealing with mental health issues in this country. In fact, many folks have pointed out to me that if you go back and look at the ACLU and their court case from a number of years ago that put states in a position where, I remember when I was growing up, we had 2 hospitals here in North Carolina, Broughton, which was in Morganton, and Dorothea Dix that were in Raleigh. And both of these hospitals were shut down to where you were no longer taking people to these mental health facilities where they would be incarcerated. And I think that it's important for us to understand that we need to get back and have those conversations. But the bottom line is we've got to keep criminals off of our streets. And until we get serious about enforcement of that at the judicial level, the magistrate level, all of these, then we're going to continue to have the same problems.
We'll leave it there. Congressman, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
With the murder of Irina Zarutska becoming a story known nationwide, lots of eyes have turned towards Charlotte City Council to see how they will respond. Joining us today on the record is Councilmember at Large Dimple Ajmera. Councilmember, thank you for joining us on the record.
Thank you, Andy, for having me.
I want to first start with the vice president's visit to the area. He was in Concord the other day, and when he was talking about Irina's murder, he blamed soft on crime policies. Do you think that liberal policies are to blame for what happened on the light rail back in late August?
Well, Andy, let me talk to you about the referral that we were supposed to talk about on this interview, which is the referral made to the BGIR committee, Budget Governance and Intergovernmental Relations Committee that I chair. And we are working to address public safety issues proactively with a focus on addressing quality of life needs for our community. And I'm here to talk about the steps we have taken and the steps we continue to take to keep our community safe. Andy, as you know, in the last CMPD's report, our violent crime had gone down by 8%. But we know that even one death or one homicide is way too many. And our residents deserve safe, thriving neighborhoods. And this referral that I'm referring to, it does ask our committee to explain how city programs working alongside county, state, and federal partners can strengthen our quality of life and public safety. We have invested in our prevention efforts. We are continuing to invest in our enforcement. And we are identifying where we need state legislation to help us prevent crime, improve livability, and protect every resident. This is not something that the city can do alone. We need partners at all levels of government to help us keep our communities safe.
Well, let's focus more on city council then, if you want to do that. The topic of council actions. Recently, we just had a council discuss PSS and their jurisdiction and it expanding. Why that change and what's the hopeful impact there?
Absolutely. Great question, Andy, because we have expanded the jurisdiction of PPS, which works alongside CMPD to keep our riders and our operators safe. As you know, that our safety budget for cats have tripled in past 1 year. And that shows that we are investing heavily in keeping our riders and our operators safe. We also recognize the need for significant investments in public safety. In addition to that expanding of jurisdiction, Andy, as you know, this past Monday, we were given an update that we are also increasing CMPD hours. We are looking at 800 hours of CMPD that will be working alongside professional police services who helps keep our cats safe to ensure that there is collaboration, continued collaboration, because we believe we need a balanced approach. We need approach that is rooted in prevention as well as enforcement. And that's what we are working on. We are also investing in fair enforcement. As you know, there has been enforcement that has been taken for fair evasion, and increased number of citations have been given out. So CATS is doing everything in their power to keep our riders and our operators safe while investing in our safety, security, ensuring there is fair enforcement along with it.
There was lots of talk of perception and how folks actually feel while riding a light rail or a bus, and there was talks of how other authorities have full-on police departments. Is that the future, you think, once we establish a transit authority, or is a contractor the best path forward right now, you'd say?
Well, Andy, that's a $25 billion question. I can tell you that in terms of what the authority safety and security plan will look like, will ultimately be made by the authority that we will put in place. As you know, that the city and the county will work collaboratively and will appoint members to the authority, but ultimately the decision will be made by the authority to come up with a strong plan to keep our riders and our operators safe, because we got to address not just the perception issue, but the reality here that a lot of transit riders do not feel safe. And that is a real concern. And CATS have made significant investment, as I mentioned, but they are also increasing patrols. We have increased security presence on light rail stops as well as bus stops. And we are not going to stop here. We are going to continue to work with our partners. We need to ensure that we continue to work with the district attorney's office as well as our state partners to ensure that we have all the tools that we need to hold people accountable, but then to also invest in our communities.
How long will this work go on for you? It's obviously safety will always be important to, especially a body like the city council, but the current action plan here to increase feelings of security or actual security on public transit, is this a multi-year process, a few months? What's your estimate?
Well, as you know, in the plan that was presented to us by Mr. Brent Cagle, clearly shows that they have taken immediate steps. You are seeing the increased patrol by our PPS partners right now, immediately as we are talking, and there is going to be a continued increase over next weeks and months. As I talked about continued collaboration with our PPS partners, we are also collaborating with CMPD. We have obviously, there are new public announcements that are happening. We have community engagement that is occurring along the blue line this week. We have upcoming security improvements. As you know, next week you'll be seeing bike patrols along the rail trail. There will be UTVs in service for hard to access areas. Also in mid-October, you're going to see enhanced surveillance capacity. We will also have increased number of customer notification tools. So all of this is being implemented. You're going to see more this fall. As I have said, we are not stopping here. We are going to continue to do what is necessary to keep our riders and our community safe.
Yeah, I believe I already saw a few of those bike units out on the rail trail this morning and yesterday. So they're definitely
That's great. Thanks
already out there.
Hagel and his entire team.
Councilmember Peacock was on national media a few days ago. He was on Fox News. He was asked the question about federal intervention or even National Guard deployment. And he says it should be considered. Not that he's all the way for it, but it's an option. Where do you sit? And is there an opportunity for federal involvement, you think, with safety in Charlotte?
Andy, as you know, that we have very strong partners at all levels, whether that's federal, state, local level. We have strong leaders in our communities, and we need to continue, collaborate with them to address our safety needs. At this point, we do not need National Guards in our city because we have very strong CMPD force, and we need to continue to collaborate with them. And see the results of all the investments that have been made in past 2 to 3 months to keep our riders safe.
And lastly, what's first on your list for your committee when it comes to public transit safety and overall safety in the city?
It's collaboration, Andy. As I had mentioned earlier, that we will review data, we will consult with CMPD, our state partners, and our district attorney's office. Our decisions will be data-driven, and we are going to deliver real solutions, not just sound bites. That sounds great on media. Our committee will deliver thoughtful recommendations that keep our communities safe and that is sustainable for generations to come.
All right, Charlotte City Council member at large, Dimple Ajmera, thank you for joining us today.
Andy, thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. The end of September marks 1 year since Hurricane Helene ravaged western North Carolina. One of the people tasked with helping with that recovery is Congressman Chuck Edwards, who represents the vast majority of that region. He now joins us live here on the record. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for your interest in talking about Western North Carolina.
For those who aren't familiar, how would you describe the hours after, the days after? How was it like there in Western North Carolina 1 year ago?
Well, we had a catastrophic storm of epic proportion, unlike anything we've ever seen in Western North Carolina. You know, when a hurricane hits, it's usually in a coastal area and not seen by folks in the mountains. So this hurricane came inland, dumped over 30 inches of rain in just a few hours, which caused trees to fall. It was complicated by high winds. We saw rivers rise 40 feet above their normal level as rain came out of the mountains. We had thousands of homes destroyed, thousands of businesses destroyed, and unfortunately, over 100 lives were lost.
How would you assess the recovery 1 year on?
Well, we've made tremendous progress, but we've got so far to go. Most of us are learning here in the district how to deal with a catastrophe of this nature because we've never done it before. We're writing the rule book every single day. We're learning every single day what FEMA does, what FEMA does not do, and what we should expect them to do.
Yeah, there's been lots of talk of federal relief and federal money. Does your part of the state have the money it needs from the feds right now?
Right now, we've got plenty of money in the coffers. There's no question that we're going to have to supplement the funding that's available. The big issue right now is getting the funding out the door, the funding that's available out the door into the hands of the people that need it. There's unfortunately a bureaucracy that's slowing down that process. We have the opportunity tomorrow to vote on a continuing resolution on the House floor that would add another $22.5 billion to our natural disaster recovery funding. And so today, funding is available. Tomorrow, hopefully, more funding will be available. And we'll keep working every single day to break down the bureaucracy that is slowing payments down out of federal agencies.
Governor Stein has issued a few requests for different amounts of federal relief. I believe his most recent request is over $13 billion. Is that request reasonable, you think?
Well, I'm certainly, with my staff, going through that request with a fine-tooth comb right now. We knew all along, after passing the disaster recovery bill that I wrote back on December 20th last year, that we'd have to come back and ask for more funding. Not really certain when that was going to be. And so I applaud the state, who has put in $3 billion of their own money so far. I appreciate that Governor Stein is working so closely with myself and the rest of the North Carolina delegation in helping us understand the state's role and the progress that they have made in us recovering, and that he continues to have dialogue on what is needed. But we have an opportunity tomorrow to add $22.5 billion to the coffers of natural disaster relief.
You mentioned that dialogue a few weeks back on a different request. There was a quote in WLOS from the White House that called the governor unfit to be governor of North Carolina. Should your constituents, the residents there, be concerned about a lack of communication or a lack of, I guess, dialogue between those two parties if they are exchanging and there's name calling?
Yeah, this is not the time to get into politics, and certainly not the place. When we look back, there's going to be plenty of blame to go around on what may have slowed this process. I have a good working relationship with the governor. I have an open line of communication with the governor. I'm focused on working with the governor and the White House at this time to help Western North Carolina rebuild.
And feel free to repeat yourself, but a year into this, we talked about bureaucracy and things being too slow. What problems still remain that are getting in the way of either individual recovery or larger recoveries?
Well, the larger recovery right now is reimbursing our local governments that have invested tens of millions of dollars in rebuilding their infrastructure. And let's also recognize that the bureaucracy that we're dealing with has been built over decades, and I applaud the committed folks at FEMA and in the federal agencies for working so closely with me and my team. But I understand that there are layers and layers of bureaucracy that they did not create. It's been created over decades, and we're trying to work to break that bureaucracy down while we're working to recover here in Western North Carolina.
How long do you think it will take to see Western North Carolina be where it was before Helene hit?
It's tough to put a time frame on things. I've been really pleasantly surprised with some of the timelines that I've heard about. For example, we were originally told restoring the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a main tourist attraction in the mountains, would take 8 years. Recently, the Department of Interior gave me a schedule that shows it will be repaired in 2 years. We think that we're ahead of schedule with rebuilding I-40. we're seeing more and more homes approved for FEMA assistance, but we still got so much work to do.
You know the area well, obviously, as well before your time in Congress, but this last year obviously changed things. What has this region or this experience taught you about the region and the people that live in Western North Carolina?
Yeah, the thing that it's taught me the most is just how resilient the people are here in Western North Carolina, and how much that we can lean on one another and how we can come together as a community in ways that I never thought was possible. We've seen neighborhoods where dozens of people lived that didn't know one another, that were severed from civilization, come together and work out ways to create fields where supplies could be shipped in by helicopter. They figured out how to get the kids to school. They figured out how to worship. They got to know one another. We've got so many churches and nonprofits that have come together and helped one another, help neighbors rebuild and make sure they have the things that they needed. So the most heartening part of this is seeing just how tough mountain people are and how much we can care for one another.
All right, Congressman Chuck Edwards, we'll leave it there. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your interest.
We'll be right back. Thank you to Congressman Mark Harris, Congressman Chuck Edwards, and Councilmember at Large Dimple Ajmira for joining us. I'm Chief Political Correspondent Andy Weber, and we'll see you next time on The Record.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.